Welcome, everybody, to Fargonauts. It is that time of year. Not summer Star Wars. That's over. Sorry. Today I have my Broachy boys with me.
Hello.
And it's that season where things are going to start changing. The leaves, the air, the mood.
The best season.
The best season. Fall is going to rear its head here. And whenever fall hits, for me, I like to watch a lot of noir things, get into that cozy time. And one noir or one mystery that I like to revisit is Twin Peaks. I don't know about my other boys here, but it really sets the tone and the vibe of fall, really. Like it starts that kind of spooky season going. The mystery and the music, it just subtly gets me to that point where it's like, all right, now we can go full tilt into like spooks. But we're going to be diving into Twin Peaks season 1, and we're going to be discussing it, and it's all-encompassing topics. Like it's changing of like the whole atmosphere and the mystery style of primetime television to its creators, Mark Frost and David Lynch, the people that have been in a lot of Lynch media, like Jack Nance and things like that from like Eraserhead. We'll talk about everything under the sun, hopefully, and dig up a ton of cool things, and yeah, just have a fun discussion about Twin Peaks. So if you want to get notified every time we do these discussions, definitely hit those notification bells and leave comments and things like that, because on our recent PS1 video, we got a commenter. Well, we got a few commenters. It was kind of fun to read one saying like, I didn't know this existed, or I think they thought it was like real, which kind of made me giggle. But we had another person kind of correct some of the things we were talking about. Like, we weren't sure if it was the first episode that Coop had the dream, and for some reason I thought it was the first season, or the first episode, but it was actually the second episode, or the end of the second episode. I think of the first episode as like its own mini movie to kind of set the stage, and the first like initial episode is like the second episode, because it is seen as that. Like, I know it's season 1, episode 1. In some cases, is just called pilot. You know, like on some streaming sites, it's just called pilot, and in some places, it's called Northwest Passage or something like that.
That's what I call my butthole.
That was the original working title of the series when it was going to be set in North Dakota.
And yes, I do want to discuss that too. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff.
Set in North Dakota?
Yes, Bracho, we'll talk about it. It's really interesting stuff, and like, and how that came about, and it'll be a fun dive, I think. So without further ado, we're gonna watch the first episode, pilot. We did it, boys. We watched the first episode, and we're going to talk about the first episode a little bit. We're going to get to this point, and I'm going to play it again, but I'm going to mute this so we don't get... All right.
Welcome.
Yeah, that score is going to get us ding,
boom. Okay.
Right, so, Eric, when Sarah Palmer sits up on her couch, there's like a mirror on a wall next to her.
Does our boy Bob pop up?
Yeah.
But it makes sense in this context when she's like having these visions.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And this is creepy imagery from the beginning.
Light, the stairs, everything.
Except it's dark now, not light.
Now she's like having like a nightmare or like a daymare. I don't know what the hell. Like, she's just freaked out. Right? Oh, do you see him?
There you saw him.
Oh.
Okay, look up in the mirror above her.
Oh, there he is.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bob.
It's quick shots, and like in one of them, the camera's moving, so it's hard to spot a little bit. But that was an accident on set, and then they made that dude Bob. Yeah, and then Lynch was like, "Hey,
I have an idea.
Do you wear a jean jacket?
I can do something with this."
You're now the main bad guy of our show.
So yeah, there was a lot of things in that first episode that I think are perfect to get people on board with this concept, because at the time, the typical viewer, they didn't have maybe they didn't understand who David Lynch was or who Mark Frost was or anything. So this is their first introduction to their type of storytelling. There was enough there, I would say, to really captivate people to continue
Yeah,
watching it and be like
there's a lot of stuff in there.
yeah, but to be very like, oh, I'm definitely going to watch it and like discuss it at work
Yeah, like I want
with
to
all my
tune in next
colleagues.
week and see it again.
I'll just let it kind of play out. It's been a while since I've seen this. Well, since I started watching it, or I mean, when was the last time I watched it in its entirety? It was probably like after I watched The Return, when I watched the whole thing in its entirety. Because like,
Right.
oh, now I gotta watch it, and it's such a crazy jolt seeing everybody older in The Return. And I'm like, dang, this
Yeah.
is very awkward and weird.
The yeah, I mean the jolt to me is like watching this episode and the freaking baby face on Dale. Like,
Yep.
gosh, he just has such a boyish charm to him with his little like eyelashes and the freckles on his
Oh,
face
I'm
and
telling you,
the
Wilson,
glint to his eye.
in Blue Velvet, and I don't think you've seen that movie, but
I haven't.
it's with Kyle MacLachlan, and he's way much younger.
Yeah,
In
or I
that
mean even Dune.
Dune, he looks like a little boy too. He's supposed to be playing like a 14-year-old anyway. But in definitely Blue Velvet, and I think we should do that at a certain point, like because we were
Oh
debating
yeah.
where we're gonna watch Fire Walk with Me, and that was introduced in this episode. What that is, and I mean, we should look into other things that maybe are similar to Twin Peaks, and I think just doing a viewing of Blue Velvet at a certain point in our watch of this show would help us to be like, oh, this
Yeah.
is interesting,
Yeah.
because there are things in that are very reminiscent of what he carried on to do in Twin Peaks.
Yeah, from what I've
Right.
heard, a lot of stuff in Blue Velvet it gets brought back up in certain ways in the Return, especially. But it's yeah, I mean, like I can't. If you're somebody watching this for the first time today, or even back in the day, like depending on what you might have seen from David Lynch, that might give you an idea of some expectation. But like if you can kind of get past the weirder moments of those tonal shifts of like one scene, it's the reveal of Laura dying and all kinds of different music being used exceptionally to set tone and all this stuff, and then you cut to like the soap opera James and Donna romance with that sweeping score. Like
Hmm.
there are such weird moves
And
where
you get this
if you
kid back there with his combing his hair, doing a little.
yeah, if the weird tonal shifts aren't the thing that's throwing you off, if you're sitting there and like if, appreciating it maybe, or if that's not the biggest thing hanging up on you, get into the mystery, because there's so much that they do here. Like it's the gloved hand reaching down at the end is such a good hook for like, hey, we've introduced a mystery and this is the next. That to me is like what probably a lot of people would be like, ooh, oh my god, that was a big thing at the end. I gotta watch next week to see who that gloved hand was.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think there is a lot that help people be excited for the next episode, and then I mean, it's interesting because the first season is only like 6 episodes, and then
Right.
the
What?
second season is like, or no, it's like 8 episodes, right?
I think it's like 8 or 10. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's like 8. But yeah, it's like, but then you go to season 2 and it's like 24.
20. Yeah,
Like a
21, 22, something like that.
it's like a typical run of like an actual season. And
Yeah.
and in season 2 they go pretty balls to the wall with a bunch of revelations and things like that.
Oh yeah, they go hard.
And in this, it's kind of just getting to know the town, the characters a little bit, and seeing the log lady at the community like center, just like flicking on lights, trying to get people's attention. Like,
Right.
is she the one going around to the hospital and like doing that to the junction box or something like that? Like fucking shit up
She's
at the
standing
morgue.
in the room
It's
of
no
the
Ferratu, dude.
Nosferatu, log lady. Yeah, I mean, like this, like you said, like this does such a good job of setting up it. We hit a lot of the most major places that we will continue to return to throughout this series, and especially the first two seasons, like the Great Northern, the Sheriff Station, the Double R, uh, and a lot of those places end up like from the Double R, we branch off to Bobby, we branch off to Donna and Ed, and like it just there's so many places and characters that this first episode covers that
Yeah, we established most of our main players and where they're at.
I just like this picture of James.
yeah, him whipping his head over.
Oh, James,
I'm gonna break this
big dummy dum
pencil.
dum.
You could you could edit this little moment like so many things. Like somebody starts playing Jungle Boys, like oh, and he whips his head over.
Huh?
Or
You look down and she like looks at him. Huh?
Oh,
What? I'm gonna snap this
fucking
pencil. I
damn.
swear to God.
but
Like I said, just looks like a big dummy who's always on the verge of crying all the time.
so we talked about how like in this scene and in other scenes, the people that are not the main actors are just sitting around and they look like
Bored.
bored, like disinterested, separate from this production, separate from this
Yeah.
reality almost. That's obviously a choice.
There's everyone.
Yeah.
Middle frame right
It's
there.
it's a good way to just have the focus directed at the key players, right? To have everybody else be disinteresting or be uninteresting in the thing and disinterested. So you're mainly paying attention to the other people.
But that's something that I feel helps lend a certain air of like mystery or eeriness or whatever the kind of quality you want to call it, of like if you go out of your way to notice the background, they are so uninterested as to be like it's overt, it's noticeable that they are
Right.
tuned out. And so if you start thinking about that, you're like, okay, is there something about this town where like these people just don't react to the news of this tragedy or something like that, or like
Right.
what?
So that adds to the surrealism of it.
Yeah, and they do a lot more. Like I remember there's a couple moments in the Roadhouse in the Return where that is specific thing is like there's stuff happening and nobody's reacting and it's really weird and we're spending a lot of time focusing on that.
Let's talk a little bit about the title of this episode was basically pilot, or like I said, Northwest Passage, which was the initial title or the working title for this show when it was going to be set actually in North Dakota. I don't know too much about like what, other than it was called Northwest Passage, but what it had to do about being set in North Dakota. Maybe because the bleakness or like
Right.
there was something about the setting, because Twin Peaks, the setting is a lot to do with this show,
Yeah.
right? Like the logging town
Yeah.
and things like that. There is something about it being maybe stark and devoid of
Yeah.
a
It's
lot.
the open plains.
Yeah, it's kind of like demanding of your like attention a lot of the times. Like the tundra or whatever else can make things kind of harsh to live in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that I have heard Lynch talk about like the reasoning for it being first North Dakota and like the name the Northwest Passage and then moving to Washington. And I think there was even some talk at some point of like it would have been North Dakota and then a secondary major location would have been Montana as well.
Right.
Um,
Makes sense.
and he talked about like what you guys were saying, like it's that midwestern area and a lot of the corners of our country in that area and like Wyoming and stuff, they're very sparse, they're very wide open, they're not so much a mystery because we know what's there, but like there's just so much space and there's so much stuff. There's a lot of indigenous history as well.
So
That's
much room
true.
for activity.
And back in the day, a lot of from what he was saying, they had found research that like there was like early drug smuggling and illicit stuff happening because it was so wide open and because it was
Oh
so
yeah,
close to the Canadian border and
there
rivers and
still is.
stuff. Yeah, so it's interesting that those same themes could continue on and still be because it does like feel spooky because that's where Sasquatch is supposed to be up in Washington, up in those
Yeah,
mountains where
Sam Squanch, dude. Yeah.
Douglas firs.
Yep. Okay, they're supposed to be in the first scene of the sheriff station. There, David Lynch's reflection appears in the first scene somewhere.
Hello.
I'm here too.
I was looking at these windows and the reflections. There's a camera movement later on where it might be in there.
Yeah, you can see him already move in one of those scenes. There he goes. Continuity there. And there's her reflection.
There's Lucy. No camera because it's further back from her. But I mean, like Pete Martell, one of the first characters we see and meet. The way that he speaks, his affable mood, and like there are qualities about him that make us feel like, what's with this dude?
Yeah, I know.
This is the part here. They pan left, I think.
The Pan's Labyrinth. Going back, kind of backtracking, I really do think we should watch Blue Velvet sometime soon. It shares so much DNA with this.
It does, and there is a huge connection to Josie, the character Josie Packard.
Yeah.
Was named Giovanna Pasqualini Packard, and was of Italian descent instead of Chinese in the original, I guess, concept. And it was meant to be Isabella Rossellini's role from Blue Velvet, but he used her in that instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that connection too.
This is getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I mean, at some point in our discussion and watching of this, it's going to be inevitable. The concept of Judy, which is something that will be explored much more heavily and thoroughly to an extent in season 3. Josie's character initially, up to a point, I don't know when it changed, but Josie's character was supposed to be a representation or avatar, or somehow able to channel, or was a pawn of, somehow was connected to Judy and elements of Black Lodge activity and stuff.
Interesting.
Okay.
So it's like when she's plotting all this stuff and not telling Harry about it, or escaping to this other part and going to Seattle and like working. There was all these things where they talk about like, yeah, we were plotting for Josie, and that Josie's the very first character we see.
That's true.
In the show.
Yeah, looking
She's
in a mirror.
sitting in the
She's
mirror
looking in a
and-
mirror, and that mirrors are a huge deal too.
Yep, and so you can kind of see what they might have been doing because of her inclusion, and so much stuff gets done with her, but then how she ends up, like, it's a lot of this, because when David Lynch kind of left season 2 and Frost had to take over a lot of it, a lot of stuff got shuffled around, a lot of stuff got changed during production, and so it's an interesting part of the backstory that helps influence what did happen to find out what they might have planned to do with that.
Yep, and that's going to be a fun discussion when those things kind of start to reveal themselves a little bit more as we watch.
Right.
But yeah,
If anybody, I'll double check really quick, but we have talked about watching Fire Walk with Me, and I think that if you're going to be if you're going to be digesting Twin Peaks, I think Fire Walk with Me is like essential viewing.
Oh yeah,
yep.
so much to do with everything.
Yes, very much. And then, yeah, I don't know when we would watch it. Probably at just
After,
maybe
Well, I mean, there's a lot of
well,
places where I
between
can see
I'd
from
watch
the
it before
beginning.
the return, but
before the return for sure. But yeah,
Or I
there's
mean, we could even watch it between season 1 and 2, and it would still work out just fine.
that might be
Right.
something. Yeah, I'd either want to do Blue Velvet after season 1, and then wait maybe a little bit, like a half, like a break it season 2 in half by splitting it with the Fire Walk with Me somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot to digest in this hour 34 freaking minute episode. There's so many characters. Even like Jacoby had a little bit. The one armed dude had a little bit. Like there's so many characters that you're like, wait, that guy never talked, but you're like, he looks really devilish. Like he's got one arm and you just Dale and Harry look at him from the back and they're like, oh, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah, like we get an ominous sort of like framed shot of him not seeing his face in the elevator, and then he just walks out and goes off somewhere, and we're like, all right, I guess that was a person in the show.
Yeah, this really freaks me out too. Like this whole scene, like where she's like, you're seeing this from like a weird perspective, like something you haven't seen. Like it's off tripod, it's freaky moving, and then like she's reacting to it. It's like, oh my god, what is this?
For the longest time, I never even saw Frank Silva up there in the mirror. I was only ever seeing her performance and her reaction. That was enough to be
Yeah,
scary, to be informative, to like do so much.
yeah, I think so too. So yeah,
This
we're gonna
really
be. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just like as a final kind of thought, like for autumn time, and especially if you are somebody who enjoys horror or like wants to partake in that getting spooked mood, this first episode is such a great like drop, like foot into the pool. You know,
Yep, it
you
is.
get you can get so much out of it, and even if you only ever watch this episode, like there's so much that you can enjoy. But if you keep going, there's a whole lot more to be seen and to enjoy. But this just leaves, if you're that kind of person, it leaves a very good taste in your mouth.
And I do like how, and we'll get to that when we watch the next episode. But there's a lot of things that Dale starts doing and showing people about his methods and his philosophy, and then we go even further with the lodge, and oh, it's, if you thought the first episode was like captivating, the second episode's like, it's introducing a lot of craziness, and they're like, we gotta get dreamy, let's go.
I need a glass of water. My socks are on fire.
buckle your seatbelts, bitches.
We're going for a ride, cry like a baby.
She's my mother's sister's girl.
And then yeah, when he gets introduced too,
Yeah.
it's fucking awesome.
When he comes in himself, and like in the first couple seasons, if you know who that is, you're like, oh, okay, that's fun. Even if you don't, it's like that's an interesting, fun kind of character. But then come the return, you're like, all right,
Whoa,
I guess
shit.
I guess we're full in.
Yeah. He knew he had to take a front seat in the return. He's like, I gotta be in this shit.
For anybody who ever sat down in an interview with him and asked him a question about like, so what was this about in Twin Peaks? No.
No. Can you elaborate?
Care.
No.
No. that him as Gordon Cole, especially in the return, was him basically being like, fuck you, I'll tell you what I want and then how I want. When I want.
I think that's why he's great with working with actors, but not with like producers or like the studio. Like actors love David Lynch, but like studios are like,
Yeah.
this guy is fucking nuts.
and he loves them too because
Yeah.
we joke about it. Like there's that video that we've been referencing a lot. I don't know if anybody out there has seen it. Just type David Lynch directing to kids. I think the video is called like David Lynch talking to kids, and it's him being like, "Okay, if it would be so great if you could get down on the ground and crawl around and just make noise like a baby. Can you do it?"
Can you do that?
And I think it was like the scene that he was directing at that time ended up being like 2 seconds of footage in the thing that it was used for.
Yeah, and studio's like, you're taking 8 hours on just directing these kids. He's like, I don't give a shit.
I'm trying to get them to crawl around and make noise like a baby. But if you watch him talk to actors that he's worked with, or if you watch actors that he's worked with talk about him, they all have such great things to say because he just loves the process. He just loves this shit happening in front of him, and for him to be the person that's helping to like steer that boat, he's happy to let them do their thing. It's like he's obviously great because he gets all kinds of performances out of these people.
And he's getting a lot of like unknowns too. Like there weren't like Peggy Lipton is very well known. During the time like this aired originally, Kyle MacLachlan probably wasn't that well known. I mean, there
Nope.
might have been a few others that have been somewhat
Laura from Royal.
at the time though.
No one
I
knew
don't-
her ass. No one knew her ass at that
No.
time.
Laurie had like, there were some people in this that were definitely like names you would have recognized back in the day.
Yeah, or like seen, but like him directing those people that still haven't like done a whole lot afterwards, like
Eric LaRae, the guy that played Leo, he didn't. From what I know, he worked.
Yeah, exactly,
not
Leo.
very much in the industry around this.
No, he's just he seemed like he was just there. He's like, somebody dared me or something like. I had to play this freak, and then he basically told me what to say, and I said it in the way he wanted me to say it. Like that's kind of like I think is maybe a better way of like directing actors. Like yeah, you can give them material, source material, and a laundry list of things you want them to say. But if they're not acting the way the director wants them, I think at a certain point, the actor just has to give up and be like, just tell me how to say it, and I'll say it just like how you say it, and then you get the shot, And I think that's exactly how David Lynch's style for Leo's character specifically, because he said things in such a deliberate way. It's like, say it like this. Say you only want to allow one type of brand of cigarette in the house.
Remember, Leo, you're telling her where you live. You're letting her know where her domicile is.
Yeah, it's just simple directions for people
that live, Shelley.
that don't have a lot of talent, or like he does have talent, but not a lot of education in it, or skill, training, whatever goes into doing it.
There's plenty of people even in this first episode who were. I mean, to me, it seems like they were people who were just cast in the role. They're not cast because of their ability for acting, and they just deliver the line and then their part is over. And like, yeah, I think that he probably asks a lot of the people that he knows can give it to him, but in a way that is like supportive and not, but then the people that are there that he knows can't give that much, he's just like, all right, we'll just move through it like this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna walk you through it so we can get done. I'm hungry. But yeah, we'll talk more in future episodes. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Twin Peaks and get spooky, get kind of in the festive season, I guess, of getting the tinge of spooks and the mystery, and yeah, get your blanket, get cozy, start watching some Twin Peaks.
Enjoy a damn fine cup of coffee.
That's another thing. Get some coffee, get some pie, watch Twin Peaks.
Some cherry pie.
I'm sure there's watch parties where people do something like that. They all dress in suits and whatever. They dress in FBI suits, eat pie, have powdered donuts.
At the time when Audrey does her dance at the Double R, everybody just stands up and does the same like slow, like weird kind of dance with her.
Yep, everybody does. It's like watching, Rocky Horror. It's like there's something to do for each scene. All right, thanks for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
So long.